Beta used to be a phase. Now it's a way of life. From apps to platforms to systems that shape our days, modern technology never stops changing. So this week on The Rundown, we unpack the hidden cost of a world that's permanently unfinished. Welcome to The Rundown. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I always say that in the wrong order, and I don't know why. It's good to see all of you. Welcome to The Rundown. We have a small but mighty panel today of beta testers, one and all. Alpha testers, one and all, actually. Starting with, of course, our Tamara. Hi, Tamara.
Hello. I feel like I've been beta testing this week.
Yeah?
I'm just trying all kinds of new things to see how practical they are in like real tasks that I already have. And that's been fascinating. I've just been having such a good time.
One of the things that I'm finding interesting is there isn't one new way to complete tasks or to do work. There are a lot, like you were describing before we came on, the way that you're sort of attacking tasks. And the whole time I was thinking, oh, that's so interesting because I'm doing it a completely different way, but we're both getting that work done. Well, we're going to get into change and all of that later today, but there's so many new ways to do work. It's just fascinating to me.
It's kind of fun. I like it.
It really is. It really is. Yeah. Hey, Tony, what kind of work are you doing, my friend? How you doing?
Hello, David. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. By the way, I freaked out last night for a brief moment at about 8:20 saying, oh my God, is tonight the education panel? And then thank God I realized it's next week that I'll be joining you.
Yes, it's next week.
I'm really looking forward to that.
Yes,
I love those conversations. I learn so much every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
So you're talking about beta testers. I am, as you said earlier, an alpha tester. So I'm in that bandwagon. So
absolutely.
I'm guilty.
Absolutely. And so is Dave Troutman. Hello, sir.
How do you do, sir?
How you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right.
Boy, you are about as decked out in office hours gear as you could possibly get.
This is my merch thing, Yeah.
You got the hat too.
Actually,
see, I didn't.
What's funny is all the crew have been wearing their hats,
but they've been wearing backwards on Sunday.
Yeah, they're wearing them backwards. That's the thing. Yeah. That's too. No, I just thought I'd show the merch. I don't think it makes anybody else want to buy any.
Well, you can't get the hats anymore, can you?
Yeah, because they're limited supply.
Yeah.
So
and
their serial number.
Though.
Have you noticed the serial number in there? Have you?
I didn't.
I got her looking.
You did. You totally did. Hey, I have my hat.
Yeah, I missed out on the hats. I feel badly. I have the shirt.
That's okay. That. Yeah. So the hat might disappear sometime during the show because it's got the shadow here. I don't like that. So
they're not camera friendly.
Clients do this, so I shouldn't do it myself.
You're welcome.
You're okay.
You're welcome.
Let me give you a pass.
All right, my friends, let's jump into the news. Well. OpenClaw is staying open, but surprise, it was not acquired. It's important to be clear about that. OpenClaw is still its own thing, but the Peter Steinberger, who created OpenClaw, was hired by OpenAI. There are a few interesting pieces to this. First of all, Peter Steinberger did not money from any of these companies. He got out of a multi-million-dollar sale of some PDF thing that he made years before. So he's fine in the money department. He was courted by both Meta and OpenAI. Apparently he met with, or at least he spoke with, Mark Zuckerberg, and was really taken by the way Mark was, sort of coding with him and giving feedback and things like that. But he ended up going with OpenAI. And ironically, a lot of what he builds is built on Cursor, which is OpenAI's, not Cursor. Is it Cursor? Yeah, OpenAI's. Is that what it's called? I'm blanking.
Can't help you there.
No, not Claude, but yeah, I think it's Cursor. Sorry, there are so many names of these different tools. The OpenAI coding tool, I think it's Cursor.
Codex?
Codex. Sorry. See, that's what it was. I knew I was wrong. Thank you.
I was like, it doesn't sound right, but
Yeah. In any case, what do you all make of this? Good, bad, otherwise? OpenClaw staying open source. Not that that's something that I would use, but what do you think about him joining OpenAI? And
Is this one of those things where Meta and all the rest have been buying up all the best engineers and programmers and that, and giving them millions of dollars in monthly salary and that? Is that part of what was happening?
oh, well,
I think that's essentially
I mean, he got
that's essentially
millions
it.
of dollars, I'm sure.
Yeah. That's essentially it. But I think his meeting with Mark Zuckerberg sounded like a really intriguing meeting because Mark came in like saying, "Hey, I like how you did this." He actually knew the information, which is obviously not always the kind of meeting you have at that level. You have kind of like, "Hey, we think you could do something for us, and we could do something for you." And ultimately, he was like, "It was a great meeting. It was really exciting. I just happen to have an alignment with what's happening at ChatGPT Better." They agreed that like really it's not part of the deal. It's not like they're acquiring it. So it's very different probably than the offer that was made at, I imagine, because Meta buys up things. And this wasn't part of the buy up. They were really buying him.
They were.
And so,
someone,
and that's the difference, right?
Right. And someone was saying that he could be the first we don't know what the deal was, but the first $1 billion solopreneur business, AI business, which, and if, look, I'm not negating his skills at all. I don't know anything about him or his skills, but the fact that he just came onto our radar in the past month and now is what Sam Altman says, a genius with a lot of amazing ideas about the future of very smart agents interacting with each other to do very useful things for people. And then he says, we expect this will quickly become core to our mission. I mean, this guy just became the president of,
Isn't
AI
that
land.
like the same kind of equivalent to influencers being brought into companies because they have a lot of followers? I mean, the truth of the matter is you can't negate the fact that his thing on GitHub went from 200 to 200,000. That's worth the money is what OpenAI is saying. They're saying, look, this is a guy who not only develops things, he develops things that people want.
Right.
And that's really where the cachet is. It's not even OpenClaw itself. It's this guy has created something that in the history of GitHub has never had that kind of popularity.
Cachet is the right word because you're right. Developers trust him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they've seen his work. They know what he can do. OpenClaw, of course, was a phenomenon, but at the same time, it's the best implementation of agents so far. And it's making everybody else turn the corner and say agency is the thing. And OpenClaw has enormous capacity and it's got lots of growth potential. So somebody has to snap it up before it gets big enough or too big to buy. And that's another reason I think Meta decided, let's keep the competition in our side of the fence and let them play in our barbecue. And then we will send them out once in a while to make a lot of money for us. Yeah.
I don't know if any of you watched all these guys, Sam Altman. I'm forgetting his name from.
This is the same as the names of the apps. You can't
Yeah,
remember the
I'm
names
sorry.
of all the
They were
people
all
who
in
present
India
these things. Yeah.
speaking at a huge conference, and it's. I mean, I don't think anything they said was surprising, but they were clearly, Sam at least was very, very focused on this idea of, agency and how important that is and how vital that is, how that is going to be so disruptive, and all of them were saying this, but for the better. That seems to be their sense. Tony, what do you think?
Well, what I think is that this thing that they're doing right now, and the fact that the agents are becoming so powerful, there is going to come a time when although we are enjoying all of this and this opportunity to play is really very low cost, that's going away.
Right.
Because this has to be paid for. The infrastructure and the data centers to run all of this, the shoe is going to drop. That's
you
where
think we're going to start paying for it? I don't think so.
See,
the pro models that are $200 now, that do just about everything. When the agents get to that point where they're doing that, then it'll be $2,000 a month.
I mean, you're right that OpenAI has an agency toggle in ChatGPT, and right now it is very throttled. You can do a few agency tasks, even on a paid plan. So maybe you're right. I don't know. I imagine it's. I don't think they're going to pass the buck over to us. I think they will do exactly what we talked about last week, and they will put ads in everything, and we will become the product. And because I also think, sorry, Tamara, I know you want to jump in, that the idea that we're going to have to go to a chatbot or go to a website to use AI that's a very now thing. And I think that's going to go away very, very soon. I don't think we're going to have to go anywhere. I think it's just going to be wherever we are. It's very much like the way Google is implementing Gemini throughout all of its apps, even though, forgive me, it sucks at this point, especially in its own apps. It's terrible, but it's just going to be everywhere. We're not going to have to, and somehow they will figure out how to monetize that. Sorry, Tamara.
No, I don't know that it's going to be $2,000 a month because the average person is not using it right now.
Yeah.
And I say that yes, lots and lots of people are using it, but they're not using it to solve. They're still in the entertainment phase. They're still in the let's make a pretty picture, or let me ask it a question, or let me Google, and Google has been free to them. So until it is so beautiful that it is, to me, it reminds me of websites. When you asked people, when you started in websites in the 90s, 95, you'd ask people, oh my gosh, this cool thing is happening. We're going to the web. Everybody like, wah. Like big people. Like I worked in networks and I worked at like CBS and NBC. And I'm like, we should do show pages. And they're like, why would we need to do that? Yeah. And now everybody can do that, but they're not doing that. What they're doing is Wix or something that is drag and drop, when the fact of the matter is HTML is the easiest language to possibly learn. Like anyone can do it.
Slow down now. All my websites are built on Wix. Wait a second.
Right. So this is my point. You prove my point.
I love
because
Wix.
Until it is truly something that, one, I need to have or I can't go about my day, and two, it looks as pretty as Canva, and it is something that many people use Canva and they don't use half the features in Canva, but they go to Canva. So unless it looks like that and I have a high need, but even then we're going to have the Facebook thing, because Facebook was like, we're going to charge one day. And then a bunch of people said, yeah, if you charge, that's no problem. I won't go there anymore. So I don't think it's going to be $2,000. I think it's going to be packaged, and I think they're going to get that high-end money from advertising and then the higher-end money from people who are computer people who really understand what it can do and who are programmers and who can utilize it in ways that truly make their lives different.
And I also think, like most companies,
the 2000 was an exaggeration.
No, of course.
Right.
I said that to be funny.
Right. I also think, like most companies, by the way, that
I think there's going to be a cost that's going to be associated with those who are, quote, professionals using the AI generators, and that's where the other side of the coin that you were talking about, Tamara, comes in, because most regular people are using AI at a very, very basic level, as you indicated, and so I just see that the gap widening from those people that do a lot of professional stuff with AI and those people who just do these very basic kinds of things with AI, just kind of saying, well, I'm using AI, but it's not really the high end stuff. And so that's what I'm talking about in terms of there being a gap, and that sort of pushes back to that whole idea of the digital divide that we're in, because there is going to be a group of people who are maximizing the use of this high-end AI that does this thinking thing, that does all of the services that you need it to do, and make reservations and dinners, and remind you of everything on your schedule to make sure that you don't miss anything. And these people who, they got the basic use.
Let me get Dave in.
I think,
hold on a second, Tamara. Let me get Dave in.
I'll jump on that point, because who are the people who need that right now? Who needs that? Enterprise. Enterprise, all the big companies,
Yeah,
all
that's what
the
I was
major,
also.
talk about, the SaaS couplets that we were talking about last week.
Right.
It's taking away the need for all those middle managers. And then it'll be OpenAI instead of Microsoft. Like, they will just push Microsoft off the table. OpenAI will do all the things you need to do. You won't need Word. You won't need spreadsheets.
And enterprise will pay for that.
It handles it all. They will pay big time
That's
for
where
it,
the money's
because
going to come from. Yeah.
at whatever it is, $1,000 per chair.
Yeah.
There's no chair anymore. There's just $1,000 per agent, and they're a lot cheaper than Dave.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what skill I come to it and what experience I have. If the agent can do the same thing and take orders from a senior manager who sits with his feet on the desk, well, then that's how it goes. Yeah.
I think the digital divide isn't a digital divide. What I'm finding as I look at these more and more is that you really have to be a very specific kind of thinker. You have to be a long-term systems thinker who can think in global ways and then switch to minute details.
They call that a generalist.
Right. Yes. And that has not been what we have been training to do for the last 50 years. What we've been training to do is to be a specialist. You go to school, you get knowledge, you do something for 30 or 40 years. And and that is a very different mindset. So a lot of people are going to be kind of phased out because they're not someone who can actually manage the AI in that way.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's a management job.
I think that is precisely the definition of a digital divide, though, because there are going to be people who don't have access. Like right now, there are people who are in the United States that don't have adequate internet connection.
But that's
in the same city
thing.
Where someone has 2,000 gigs. I mean, two gigs up and down in the same place. There's someone that's got a little bit more than dial-up.
That's
in the same city.
But that's infrastructure. Some of those people, if they were given access, they would have the natural skills and the brain that is the kind of brain that could use that. So that's why I'm saying a digital divide is saying, I have access, you don't have access to the technology. What I'm saying is there's going to be lots of people who have access to the technology who will be phased out because they don't process information in the best ways to use the technology. That's what is very different about this, about what's happening now. It's not just haves and haves nots. It's, do you possess the kind of thinking that it takes to start a project with AI where you know the outcome? And a lot of people don't.
I want to push us forward, but I just want to. John Wallace said something really interesting, which is that Microsoft still wins. Going back to Dave, what you and I were saying, Microsoft still wins because the services will still call the MS APIs to generate the outputs. So these agents. So I'm using an AI in an app that I built.
Those agents will write their own APIs. They don't need Microsoft APIs.
Well, no, because
they'll write their own.
Well, okay, so that's possible. But I think John's point is that
it's already been done.
the services are still a necessary ingredient to all of this working, right? The agents can't do anything without the hardware, the AI, and the services that they call upon to do the things that they're doing. In any case, let's forge ahead because our good friend, Mr. Zuckerberg, was in court this week. And as if what he was in court for wasn't ugly enough, he and his team had to be berated by the judge for wearing Meta smart glasses that all have cameras on them in the courtroom. I don't know.
He has no shame.
I don't know if it's no shame, if it's being oblivious. It's, this is why people don't trust Facebook, because of stupid stuff like this. It just boggles my mind. So let me just go back to why he was there. So he's there because Meta is involved in this there are a number of cases, but this is a big one, that claims that apps like Instagram are addictive to and harmful to children, and that the companies know that they're addictive and intended them to be that way. And of course, Zuckerberg and others like him would say that isn't our goal, that, we acknowledge that they can be addictive, but that isn't our goal. Unfortunately, a whole bunch of stuff was shown in court that shows that they absolutely knew that this was addictive. They absolutely promoted the addictive natures of social media. And then they walked in wearing smart glasses. I don't even know what to make of this. I don't know how he can expect to win in these new races that we're seeing when he's that tone deaf.
Are these rich people in bubbles? Is that what's going on?
Right.
They can't really relate. They don't know what they think. Their idea of what's going on is very different from what's actually happening. And they go into a courtroom and they think they have control. It's kind of like, Judge
Right.
Judy. She knows when somebody's lying because they open their mouth. I've been in court many times and I've won a couple of cases, some of them big ones. And yeah, you don't go in with some sort of, intent to intimidate or to tell the judge you're cool. Like, they're not impressed.
Right.
I think it says a lot about both sides too, because I think, and I can't believe I'm going to go take the opposite side and start
I
defending.
can't believe you're going to do that either.
I can't believe I'm going to, because listen, I agree with everything you're saying, Dave. I don't disagree with that at all. I do think that there's a real, a haves and a have not. Like, this is the world they live in. We're seeing with all of the things as we start uncovering, everything from the Epstein files to all of the, great. So just turn on the news, right? There's a difference where people don't really have a pulse of the world. The other side of that is that we picked this arbitrary age of 13 being the age of consent to be on these apps. And then we kind of treated it like speeding on the freeway, going 5 miles over the speed limit, where we're like, well, it's 5 miles over the speed limit. It's not really speeding. In fact, it is. It's breaking the law if you go over that age. And so it was never enforced. And that coincided with the fact that we kind of said as a society, it's not that harmful. Like, it's my 8-year-old can be on the phone, and parents let that happen. And now we're 20 years into this and we realize, hey, it's actually not for kids. Like, it's detrimental, it's harmful, and that's not okay. So two things are true in here. One is they have a business model. Of course they have ratings. Of course they're trying to figure things out. Their main job is to keep all of us on their site. Absolutely. And it's very similar to what will come out of all of this is similar to what happened when cigarette companies used cute little animals to advertise their cigarettes, and they put them accessible in little boxes on corners where kids could get them. So we said, hey, actually, it's really not cool that 9-year-olds are smoking, and so we have to put parameters. And we're kind of at that phase as a society now, but also we have to take personal responsibility, and I do have to too, because I was one of the teachers who was like, we can use cell phones in the classroom. And I did use cell phones in my classroom. And now that I know more, I probably wouldn't, like as a teacher now. So we know more. Everybody's a little bit at fault. We have to start treating this as though it's not just going 5 miles over the speed limit, that it's actually a much more difficult thing that has real consequences to children and to young adults that are irreversible. They're not reversible. So we have to take chances.
What frustrates me about the case writ large, and I'm almost uncomfortable saying this because I don't want to diminish in any way the pain of the families. What's frustrating to me is this idea that social media causes children to kill themselves. Social media may, or other technologies may indeed push children farther or faster, but mental illness, depression, suicidal thoughts, that's something much deeper. And I'm speaking from, I have some experience in this. I don't need to say any more than that. There's much more to, and again, not to minimize the pain that, or the way any of these tools may have made it worse, but I just think it minimizes how complex and deep and challenging mental illness is when we say it's Facebook's fault or it's Instagram's fault, or I don't mean to put words in the mouth.
I don't think it can be. I agree with you. It isn't that simple, but it's similar. I do think the seatbelt is a perfect example. We knew for many, many years cars were driven differently when they first came on the scene. For years and years, we didn't wear seatbelts, and we put them in, and immediately people were like, they're taking away my rights. I shouldn't have to wear a seatbelt. And in fact, deaths went down. So in a way, what we're talking about now is 13 the age that people should be on the internet? And then more importantly, parents are letting their kids, and kids are getting, because as a society, that's not Mark Zuckerberg's fault. Now, it is their fault, and where they're saying, yeah, I mean, of course we track everybody, and they say we've got to figure out how to keep kids longer and so that they can continue on into adulthood. That is a real problem. But when you look at it and you say, listen, it's really not that big of a deal. It's a slap on the hand kind of thing, because as a society, we've said, let's go ahead and let it. And my kid has an account, and I know they have an account, and I'm a good parent, and I'm watching their account, so it's no big deal. If that's the society thing, and then as a businessman, he's like, this is where we're at. Yeah, we should be getting, every one of our market plans should have a way to reach all of the people who are in our market. We know these are our people. Yeah. So again, we're not talking about morally, is it right or wrong? We're talking about their job as a business is to do that. And as a society, we have to now make a decision and say, now that we have this research, do we think that 13 is a good age, knowing that kids will come on at 9? Should we say it's 16? We don't have 12-year-olds generally driving cars by accident. We don't have 9-year-olds sneaking in to be drivers of cars, because you can't drive till you're 16 and you have to take a test.
Yeah. There was a couple of weeks ago, I think, on Bill Maher. There was a gentleman there, an author and a psychologist, who was talking about how his contention was that we've seen what social media has done to our children. Why are we not regulating artificial intelligence? Right.
Absolutely.
Why are we not getting ahead of that, such that that we're going to use our children again as guinea pigs for this new experiment?
Well, and the creators of social media and the creators of these apps do not let their own children have access to cell phones and things. So that should be a big sign to the rest of us, right? Yeah. My kids can't do it, but your kids can. Right. And if you let them, that's not my problem. That should be a red flag to the rest of us.
Dave,
that if they're not willing to.
Yeah.
Just one short thing. The metaphor of driving is very interesting, but that's doing something in public with other people. And it's different when it's in the home. In my home, I'm the rule. Right. Outside, it's society's rule. So, except in the case of small children and bad behavior. But we used to have spanking quite widely spread, and it was in the home, not in the public. Now we don't do that as much. We counsel against it. We can counsel against letting children younger than 16 use the internet without training. We could actually impose training that you can't buy this computer until your kid has a certificate, and then they can use it. And
but we find ways. We find ways around that. I mean,
sure,
yeah, of course.
But it's like the seatbelt law in the sense that it comes on gradually, and you get to see the sense of it. And the kids just play along. They don't know any better.
Right.
They know my parent wants me to have a certificate that says I went to computer school to learn how to use this thing and learn all the safety features that have to go with it. And when they learn that it's targeting, they change their behavior. They suddenly become, critically aware and critically literate of what computers are doing. And that's what I advocate. You hear me doing this all the time. Think of what it's doing to you.
Right.
What has computers
Absolutely.
done to you?
The problem with
and had you doom scrolling during the pandemic? It did it to all of us, and we
Absolutely.
had the capacity to be able to find other outlets. But children are in a narrower world, which they haven't explored yet, and they'd love to explore the internet to be on par with their friends. And of course, if they all had to have a certificate, I think we'd both, it's a driver's license for the
Well,
internet.
and
It's,
also I was in a conversation this last weekend with a bunch of writers, and more than one person has a literal device that blocks their phone because they're like, Tamara, I cannot say no. And the Apple device allowed me to continue on.
Yeah.
She's like, I had to buy a box that I could trap my phone in. And she goes, my life is 1,000 times better. So we can't do it as adults, and we can't expect kids who don't have a full frontal lobe yet to make those decisions on their own. And we can't expect all the parents to be like Dave or David.
John,
right?
when
John pointed out,
Zuckerberg has teenagers, and then he's going to change his mind.
John pointed out in the chat that Mark has a fiduciary responsibility to obtain and retain clients in order to grow his business.
Absolutely.
There is no moral obligation that supersedes that, assuming everything is legal. And I actually think, John, that is, for me at least, that's the fundamental question, is that I'm not convinced that what's legal is enough, given how radically different this is than really anything else that we've had to navigate throughout human history. At least this is my sense. Nothing else that we've had to navigate through human history is like this, is like artificial intelligence, is like social media, is like technology in general. And so I'm not convinced that assuming everything is legal, I agree with you. I'm just not convinced that that's the bar that we should be shooting for. It feels to me like there should be a higher bar. I have no idea how we hold people to that bar because, like you said, his job is to make money. I agree.
But
100%.
we do the way you hold people to that bar is you say it isn't legal for people to be on the internet or to be on these services under 13, and it is your job as a company to make sure that that is not
I don't know
happening.
how they do that. I don't know how they do
But in
that.
the same way that it is the job of a movie theater to check ID, or it's the job of
that's
to buy
physical.
alcohol for them to check
but
your
you're
ID.
physical. You're physically there.
I understand what you're saying, but like the bigger issue is a global issue of is 13 okay? And other countries are saying, actually, we don't think it is. We think 16 is better, and we're not. And that's a bigger question. Why is America not?
Fair enough. I disagree that that's the main issue. I think the main issue is that it's impossible to enforce that. It's just.
I think that's going to be their argument too.
Yeah.
I would really remind you that in Korea, there's a rule on kids playing on the internet, and you get a $200 fine your parents get a $200 fine.
Maybe that's how right. As soon as you start charging people for this, we start fining people. That's interesting. It's terrifying, but it's interesting. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Tony, you want to say something, or are we jumping into the main topic?
That's okay.
All right.
That's okay.
We're doing it.
We can move on.
I have a question for all of you. Wait, I have to advance our little me here, so that we look all professional and stuff. There we go. Okay, we're on the third topic. Here we go. The question is, are we accepting a world in which nothing is ever done, and we're the ones who are expected to keep adapting? We all know that change is hard, and yet we are actively constructing a world in which change is the norm, and we humans who already have a really difficult time with change are finding ourselves never able to stop and smell the standard, what is it called? The standard release? Is that what it's called? Whatever, the official release, because everything is changing constantly. So let me ask you this. When's the last time that you felt a piece of technology? I'm going to ask Tony, actually, because Tony, you're still using that iPhone. You're still using your iPhone as your main camera. I'm so impressed by that because I can't stick. I'm here. Sorry, I disappear for some reason every once in a while. When was the last time you felt like a technology was actually finished, done?
My 2012 MacBook Pro that I used to come into office hours for the first time, that just died. I mean, it died. It was nothing, nothing I could really do to, it was a combo thing. The battery could have been replaced, and then there was, the keyboards had to be replaced because of the way in which the battery expanded on the MacBook. So there was no resurrection of it. So I had to let it go. Part of the reason why I continue to use the iPhone as my primary camera is, quite frankly, financial. I am not in a position to get a camera that I would think that would make me look better than what my old iPhone is doing. And so it's for practical reasons. I think this looks pretty good. It's not,
Yeah, you don't need anything
I know I'm
better.
not the best looking person on the internet, but it does what it needs to do. And I play around. As a matter of fact, if you look at last night's show, you'll see that there was
something black on the side there.
It was kind of
a shadow. Or something.
There was, yeah. And so I spent the whole day eliminating that. So if you go to a wide shot now, you shouldn't see that anymore. I think I spent.
But that's
hours
that's actually a good
getting that
example,
fixed.
Tony. Right? Like here, you have done over 100 episodes of your show, and there you were last night. And this happens to all of us. There you were last night with something that wasn't done. Now, the beta world is a little different. The discussion about the death of the beta phase, because what these new tools are doing is they are continuously deploying, silently updating. They are perpetually unfinished. Just today, Google released Gemini 3.1, and yesterday I think Opus 4. Or not Opus, the other one, Sonnet 4.6, whatever. Like every day, things are growing and changing and new, and it's, for someone like me, it's thrilling. I love it. I cannot wait for the next drop of anything. But for most people, it's very unsettling. Very unsettling.
I think that that's not 100% true.
Okay.
I think we're seeing this for two reasons. One, we're seeing it because change is happening so quickly. Like we're kind of doubling, when the internet came out, it was like they said 2000% it changed every single quarter. I think this is faster than that. This is outrageously fast because technology is evolving that quickly. But the other side of that is that we want it to evolve that quickly. And also, I think we've created a sense that we expect change. I went into an old, I thought about this week when I was looking at the document for this. I went into this old storage, I'm trying to clear it out, and I found a box, and on the outside it said, fragile, very important. And I'm like, ooh, fragile, very important. That must be cool. I opened it up, and it was my entire Microsoft Office Mac edition, which I know I paid a lot of money for, that could only be done in the good old days when you had to have very specific software and you could not share between. Remember all of that? And all of my very expensive Mac things were in there. And the truth of the matter is, we got to a point where we're like, we do not want to rebuy this very expensive package of software. I would much rather it update more quickly. And if it can do something better now, why should I wait 2 years from now? So I think as a human society, we have decided, actually, I don't want to wait. And we don't wait for anything. We don't wait for dinner.
What you just said brought back memories of updating. Like when we wanted to update our iPhones, we had to plug them in. We had to take action. We wanted to update our Macs. We had to get CDs in the mail or whatever. When we don't wanted to watch Netflix, we had to get a DVD in the mail. I don't have to do anything. My phone updates itself without now I gave it permission, but without even asking me.
which is great if there's a bug, right? Because before you would have to wait for a very big security thing, would have to have another disk that you go and buy and upload, and that took forever. So some of this has evolved out of necessity and out of the fact that, you know what, if they can fix the problem that they have discovered is a problem, I absolutely do not want to wait 2 years.
There are changes like the Zoom chat window, and things that for a lot of people are just frustrating and annoying. And why did that have to change? And again, I think that where I'm coming from in this is this idea that society is absorbing permanent technological instability faster than we can psychologically process it,
right,
or adapt. And it gets very unsettling, I think. Dave, go ahead.
Well, the key word in your opening was adapting to. I think we adapt to every change in our lives, everything. We've adapted to using LED lamps instead of incandescents. It's beneficial, it's helpful, it makes life easier. Heck, the bulbs last longer. This is the same as designing a new package for cereal or crackers or whatever. They want you to see new all the time. It's product oriented. And anybody in product design knows this. Your brand, of course, has to be upgraded all the time. Your logo has to be more prominent or maybe less. You do things to get people to pay attention. And because there is competition between all these software companies to get you to try their stuff, they want to make sure that you're always getting the newest thing so that you don't feel the other guys have got a better deal than you do. So I used to work with an Apple IIe, first Apple I ever used, and it was at work. And we wrote scripts with it. And I never did an update. I don't think the whole 2 years I used it, I needed to do an update. There were a lot of apps that I could add on and things that came out that I wanted to see, well, what does that do? But I didn't have to update the machine. I didn't have to sort of do a security update because we weren't on the internet. But I got to use a Mac in a lab, and then that convinced me that I ought to have one of these things. And I only waited until the Mac could do video. So the first Mac to do video was the Apple II, not the Apple II, the Mac II big box app. And that device served me very well for about 12 years. And I didn't really have to upgrade to the latest Mac. And I saw a lot of the little pizza box Macs and all the rest coming along. I didn't feel like I did that. But during that time, those years that I had the Apple II, Mac II, sorry, I keep doing that, I benefited from being a beta tester. A lot of shareware came out and it was offered up in beta, and I signed up for that. And then I would write little reports to people of how it's working for me. It always included my entire system. Graphic converter, which I'm sure nobody's heard of, Climax AV, Free Ruler, Net Downloader, but nobody uses that. FarPlay, of course, got advertised on office hours. I signed up for that beta, and I signed up for Ecamm Live beta through that whole process that Ecamm was going to the Zoom including thing. So betas have been pretty good to me. And in a lot of cases, it introduced me to things that I think have helped me and helped me do what I do. But I did computer animations at for a local cable company down in Colorado, and they had a computer, and they didn't update that for years because it was a non-digital computer. It was an analog computer. So I think, for me, I only see this as the newest packaging that Apple's now binding 4 or 5 items together into their creator pack. And they're just rebranding, I guess, is what they're doing. And I think the updates to Microsoft just demonstrate how complicated Microsoft software really is. Their whole platform and the apps you use from Microsoft. The integration between those two is so layered and so complicated and so built up for enterprise and personal use that it's really difficult for them to issue anything on a regular basis. Cars were always given out every year, right? I mean, as a guy who was into cars as a teenager, my dad drove me around to all the dealerships so I could examine all the new cars and know all its features and everything else. This is before I even had a license. But my fascination for the cars was the same as we have for AI now or computers or even video conferencing in general, because we're really interested in what effect it's going to have on us. I knew I was going to drive eventually, but I never did until 36 years old. So I learned about, what do they call it, planned obsolescence, where a car is built to only run for about 5 years, and then you got to get a new one. And I realized, well, that's not going to do me any good because I don't have a big income to support that.
You know,
I don't choose the newest thing, but I'm really interested in the new things that are available, and then I wait till they're mature enough for me to be able to adopt them.
yeah.
And adopt is part of adapting.
You mentioned Apple's suite, and I wonder if those are not only the exception to the rule nowadays, but if those also aren't making themselves what's the word? They're burying themselves. They're killing
Integrated?
themselves by not.
Oh,
My, my point is that
killing the babies. Yeah.
right, tools like Final Cut. And look, I don't use a lot of these tools, but the tool in that suite that you mentioned from Apple,
Right.
those don't change regularly. They certainly don't change with the frequency that Zoom changes, the frequency that I can speak.
Updates to the
Ecamm
platform.
changes.
Yeah.
You know,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, even apps in the App Store on Apple devices, they're constantly changing, and there is a whole bunch of apps I think that are legacy apps that are not part of this new beta culture, and I think they're going to get left behind.
But I think that if you look at that going to a subscription model or a suite model, that is speaking to AI, because things are changing so quickly that if they're going to continue to have upgrades and adopt new things, then having that subscription model
that's a good
allows them
point.
to get more people into it.
Sure. We've gone from buying stuff to renting stuff.
Right.
And
Right,
this is the
right.
difference. And with renting, you can always get an update. But with buying stuff, you can decide not to get the next big thing. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and
The
that
other
started
piece-
back
the other
music
piece
when
to
we
that-
all stopped buying music and instead listening to renting it or listening to it on Spotify or wherever it was. Yeah. Tony, did you want to jump in?
I just wanted to say that the other piece to it too is that you think about it. This is where it's an opportunity for students and educators to for $3 a month be able to have access to all of these amazing things that Apple does. Well, you can say, well, you have access to pages and numbers anyway, but to have access to the Final Cut Pro for $3 a month, I think that's a great thing, and it brings in regular people to have access to some of those things. Logic. If you have any interest in music, to be able to move from GarageBand to Logic, that's an incredible thing. So, I'm not sure that there's an issue of return for investment as far as Apple is concerned, that they're necessarily concerned about regular people, but it does provide an opportunity for regular people to have access to something.
I agree.
I think the bigger issue is that it is like a gym membership. They actually don't care about the regular people who use their software regularly. They care about the regular people who buy the subscription and don't use their software.
Right.
I personally make it better for people at Planet Fitness to use the equipment. Those updates you see, that new machine, that is me. That is me. I am subsidizing that for you because I don't go. I continue to pay, but I don't go. Right? So that's
You
really where
recognize that that's a problem,
subscription.
Tamara, don't you?
But that's the subscription model. Why a subscription model is successful is that the people who go every single day, those people they're getting their money's worth. People like me are paying for them to have a better experience. And that's what's going to happen here.
Let's talk about for a moment about those legacy organizations, institutions that really adapt slower than than the world,
Like law,
schools, governments, religious communities. What
Legal.
happens? What happens to those? I was touring a family yesterday with the new school program that I'm working on, and they were asking, how is this different than the public school? And I said, listen, they're doing great stuff. The public schools are doing great stuff, but they're 20 years behind where we are, because they just don't know how to adapt to a changing world. I don't know if it's because they're too big or because they don't have the early adopter culture. What do we make of these institutions? How do we?
Well, it's the administration layer. Yeah.
Or
Right.
is it the
The
administration?
bigger the
Right.
administration layer, is the
Yep.
slower the moving. It's an elephant at that point. Yeah.
So what happens to these, in a world where everything is changing so quickly, what happens to these institutions that just don't have the bandwidth to do that? I mean,
I think it speaks to the problems that we're projecting with AI, right? The people who are going to be able to continue to have jobs in a culture where machines are smarter, faster, and actually can do the work better than a human who still makes errors. Schools are going to produce a generation of children who have absolutely no shot, which is going to be a societal problem
oh my,
for us because
that's huge what you just said. I mean, that's,
Yeah,
but
it
that's
is
the
huge.
reality, and that's the thing. If people are, we are still in this conversation of AI. We have so many people when you talk to them about AI, they're like, I refuse to do AI because they took people's, pictures and they used their
Copyrighted
materials.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, the person I talked to this weekend who is very high in like library science, she said she tells people if your work is not been used in there, you are out of the conversation. You are out of the cultural conversation. But we still have people who are having that conversation. And
Yeah.
and we have the other side, which sounds so alarmist, saying, well, there's not going to be any jobs. It's like, no, we are literally are going to be training kids into a culture that they cannot survive in. So yeah, it's a big problem, and we have to figure it out, and that's going to come at a cost that I think people are not going to happen. I mean, the truth about being in schools, and I say this coming from an education background, is that there is a lot of innovation and there's a lot of research in education happening. The way it's rolled out in schools is so crazy because you'll get the new latest thing and then next year you get the next new latest thing, which means it can't be taught to fidelity. No one is learning how to really teach it because we've got a new initiative. So teachers are stuck. They may know new things, but they're required to use this new thing. Right. Just as they get comfortable with this new thing, there's another new thing. And we can't make that kind of adaptation.
Yeah. It's a little terrifying, to be perfectly honest with you. The education piece, that we're not teaching our children.
Yeah, I think so too.
That they're not going to know how to function in a new world.
I kind of look at it as more of the same, and what I mean by that is that you have parents right now, or let's say 20 years ago, that did the extra for their child to ensure that their child had access and knowledge. When everybody else wasn't having a computer, they had a computer in the home. And maybe they had to share it amongst, 2 or 3 children, but the computer was in the home and they had access to the computer at home or whatever resources that they need that was not in school but was at home. The issue becomes when you have a parent that can't do that because of, for whatever reasons in society, they don't have the opportunity to engage with their child to make sure that the learning that takes place in the building is reinforced at home. And so it'll be the same thing. That's why I say more of the same, because parents who are aware and have the resources will ensure that their child gets what they need. And so it really is, again, this whole thing about, everything that we talked about tonight. If you really look at it, it really is all about return on investment. It really is, because that's what it comes. Even if you go back to the whole idea of the seatbelts that we had in the beginning of this conversation, right? Mm-hmm. So why did they put the seatbelts in? Because of the lawsuits that were taking place when people were dying. It wasn't because they were just really concerned about people.
Right, that's exactly it.
It really wasn't about that. Let's be transparent about it. It wasn't about that. They didn't care.
It's why McDonald's coffee says coffee is hot.
Hot, yes, that's right. And a ladder says this is not a step. Yes,
right.
That's right. Yeah, these are all part of that legal stuff. And the insurance companies as well. They've slowed down the truckers and all the rest of this stuff because the damage is there. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
one of the things that when Tony was talking, it reminded me that, we gave our son a library card when he was very young. And libraries have computers in them now. So
Mhm.
it's really an introduction. If a person doesn't have access to a very good computer at home, they've got some pretty darn good computers in libraries. And I don't know down where you are whether library cards cost a ton, but up here they're free.
They're free here.
So yeah, so it should be a thing that a kid, when he's coming out of grade 2, he gets a library card, and then he can do whatever he wants in the library. You take him there, and he's going to explore books. He's going to explore manga. He's going to look at videos. He's going to bring home discs, and we're all going to learn something from it. So, I think in the sense that resource is probably limited and can't accommodate 20,000 children, uh, there is openings and opportunities. Now, we brought a Syrian family over as refugees, and they came with 7 kids. And you know what the first thing the group wanted them to do is learn where the library was. They didn't even know what a post office was, but once we showed them the library, this is really great. They forgot that you have to take the books back, but we had to teach them that too.
Libraries are actually really interesting because they're not just the libraries are serving a purpose that is really important. They don't just have books and just have computers. Lots of them have maker spaces or have things libraries. So at my library, I can get a toolkit to fix my computer. I can go, I can check out a ukulele or a sewing machine. There are also maker studios where I can 3D print and I can do all. So our libraries are actually doing really important work to create accessible spaces for people to learn and grow. So I do think like that is going to be, I think those institutions are going to be so important, and they're going to be bigger in our communities, hopefully, because of some of the services they're offering, because it's not just books. It's not just computers where you can go to a terminal. You can do a podcast, you can 3D print, you can really learn some of the most advanced technology. And that's where a lot of libraries are actually putting a lot of their dollars right now.
Guy Cochran, who's watching. Hi, Guy. Good to see you. It's a great time to start learning to be an AI orchestrator. I like that.
Yep.
An AI
I love that.
orchestrator. I think that, Guy, that the challenge that still weighs on me is teaching children that we don't know. This goes to your point, Tamara. We don't know what children will need to know because we don't know what this is going to look like.
But we've never known. We've never known. No one, when I was growing up, no one said, I want to be a web designer. That was not a job that existed.
That's true.
So we've never known. The question that we have with education is, what is most important now? Because is content most important if they can look it up online very quickly? And if kids are not engaged in learning every single date in history, then because they're like, I can get the date, let me just look that up. Then what are the broad skills that people need to know? What are the critical thinking skills that people need to know?
Yeah, I agree.
And that's
yes.
the shift that's going to have to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. But, no, sorry, not but, and this goes really back to why I was interested in talking about this, that with web development, for example, you're right that no one said, I'm going to go up and be a web developer 30 years ago. Well, 30 years ago, maybe they did. But for at least a number of decades and continuing today, that is a real thing. We have had time to settle into that change. And what I think is happening is the change is now going to be coming at such a click that we lose any settling time. We lose any time to say, okay. Like by the time we get comfortable with chatbots, let's just remember, by the way, that chatbots have been here for less than 3 years. That in mass usage, less than 3 years. I don't think it's a stretch to suggest that within 2 years, we probably won't be engaging with chatbots anymore. 5 years for a technology shift is lightning fast. And that's a slow example. So that's I think where I'm going is that you're right that we never know what's going to happen, but we have throughout history had time to settle in, and that's what I think we're losing it in this new sort of alpha economy, not even a beta economy.
But to Guy's point, it isn't any specific technology that we need to be training people. We need to be developing resilience. We need to be developing the ability to orchestrate more than one task at a time, or to be able to manage, because this is a management skill. The people who are going to be working with AI, I mean, I've done at the tiniest little bit of level, and I'm like, wow, I'm using every producer skill I've learned in 40 years to really figure out how to hone in what I want and to speak clearly and to get it to to give me outputs that I want to see. Those are very specific skills, and that is not what we're training. So I don't think it's about any one technology to train a technology. I think it is to train the skills that it takes to be able to adapt quickly and to not melt down.
But, and this is a but, and then I'm coming to you, Tony. Jeff Simmons writes in the Mukana chat, remember prompt engineer? Haven't heard that term in a while. So, so again, in the past year and a half, something that we thought was going to be a future profession, perhaps, a prompt engineer, is all but dead and gone.
That's why we can't be teaching to a profession. We have to be teaching to a skill. If you were going to be a prompt engineer, you had to be able to analyze the problem, figure out what you wanted, and figure out how to design a prompt to get what you want. So that isn't about being able to use a prompt. Using agentic AI. You can't just go, hey, do all my stuff for me. It's not there yet. Maybe one day, but it's not now. You have to really think through, what do I want my end result to be? What are the deliverables I want it to have? And then go back and figure out how to do it. It's not about learning any of these things. It's about adapting our skills to be honed in on what needs to happen in order to make this new thing work, which we've been doing for a really long time. We learned that in cars. We learned that back in horse and buggy. We've always been an adaptable people. So I think that's the skill that we have to be doing.
Yeah, you don't have that faith?
I don't. Yeah, we are an adaptable. We adapt. I'm not sure we're adaptable people. Tony, go ahead.
But that's the skill
Tony,
that we have to have.
No,
I gotta let Tony.
Yeah, you go through. I mean,
Hold on, wait, Dave. I gotta get Tony, and then you. Go ahead.
Yeah, Tony, go ahead.
I just want to say that we are assuming that it's about us, and it's not about us.
Right.
That there is, if you look at this, social media, AI, all of it has a sort of gamification to it. And the gamification is not for us. It never was. And so what I would say is that we are assuming that we are going to be the ones that whatever this ultimately becomes, that we are going to be the users of it, and we're not. And so it doesn't mean that we shouldn't talk about it, but I think that we should keep that in the back of our minds that, the titles that were lifted up just a few minutes ago that, may have gone out of style, there is going to be different positions and titles that we couldn't even conceive of because it's not for us. But while we're here, let's make the best of it. But really and truly, that's the way in which I look at it. And maybe because, I'm the age that I am and I've seen as much as I've seen, that I kind of feel like the way in which they, the reason that I said gamification is because the way in which they engage, I'm talking about people even younger than my sons who are adults, the way in which they use technology or even how they play games. And, the way I use a remote and the way my son uses a remote, totally different. And I would imagine if my son had children, the way that he would use a remote would be totally different too. So
it really would. Yeah.
Yeah. Dave, go ahead.
In all the consulting work I've done, and it's been for a variety of institutions, people have come up to me after I've been working there a while, and they say, Dave, how do you become a consultant? This is that generalist skill thing that Tamara talks about. And I start with, you got to be able to listen. You got to be able to hear what people are saying, and maybe even between the words. And then you have to sit and consider what they're talking about, and then not just tell them what to do, but ask them what they haven't tried yet, or things that they might look at. And I'm consulting with them as an equal partner, as it were, because I don't want to be the guy who walks into a room and says, "Okay, now here's how it's going to go, guys," because you never come back on those contracts. So the sense I have is that the basics that kids have to learn, and the basics the next generation has to cope with, is that if they cannot speak to the AI and get what they want back, we've got to start teaching them how to talk to other people. And then they'll get what AI was designed to talk to, which is people.
AI was designed to talk to people?
Yeah. Well, it's not designed to talk to itself. It's designed to learn from us. I mean, come on,
Right.
that's the whole thing. To talk to us and learn. And that's
Our
what
fear is that it's going to talk to itself in different languages.
teachers represent, that process of, you came to class and I've got things I can teach you. What do you want to learn? And then they go, oh, well, I want to know about rabbits. And then, okay, today we're doing rabbits.
Okay.
You and I see the collapse of this. This is all shortening up. This is all becoming instantaneous. And that's also part of the whole, everything that has to be new. We all want instant gratification. We all want the answer now, and we all want it to happen on our terms. Now, we used to talk about customization of software. We are at that point where you don't need a programmer to customize your software. You buy a basic package and say, now add this and do this and add this, because I only do that on a Friday. And then suddenly it's your app, not somebody else's. So I don't need Microsoft anymore.
I think the other piece of this is that it's very easy to every generation talk about what kids will need to learn. And the speed at which this is happening means that this is going to kind of implode in on itself, because it's not just what the upcoming generation might come to, because this generation is going to stay stable for another, several years. It's changing for everybody. So we're going to have two sides of this angle. We're going to have people who cannot make the change, who are adults, grown adults who've lived their life, who are in the middle of their career, and then their career suddenly goes away. And we're going to have kids coming up who are not going to be ready to handle the skills that are necessary. In the past, we've always said, hey, the world's working how it is, and what is this future generation going to have? And right now, what we're talking about in the future generation, with the speed at which this is changing, is that if people are not ready to change, then they will be left behind.
So what do we do about that? I mean, you've raised now,
Sure.
the
Take responsibility
education
for it.
problem and how people are going to be left behind. If we know that institutions and society as a whole does not change at the speed at which the world around us is now changing, what do we do to make that we don't fall behind, that we don't leave people behind, Dave?
What I'm doing for my community is get at the city administration and make sure they are at speed, and not, you talked earlier about how slow institutions will change. I am on my platform every week with the city at various levels to tell them, here are the changes you can expect, and these are the problems that are going to happen if you can't adapt. And they are starting to listen.
Okay.
I think what you said is the key to this, because I ran a course today for free for the kids. I sent out a thing to my community and I said, hey, I'm going to teach these tools and you can come. Here's the link. Come on in and we're going to do it. And I'm not doing anything terribly difficult. I'm doing really basic stuff because I'm like the techie best friend, right? I'm not like, you guys are all techie people. I'm the techiest lay person in a room. But that's what, to me, it is about re-engaging with your community, whatever your community is. David, you're doing that at your school. You're saying, what can I do to help this community? And I think we talk about this every week, that as much as technology is dehumanizing us, the answer to that, the antidote to that, is continued conversation like the one we're having here, and going into our communities and talking to the people that we know on whatever level they are at. So that's, I think, the answer.
So I would
Tony's community too.
say again?
Absolutely. Tony's doing the same thing.
Yeah, I would push back a little and say that we are we're the worst examples because the communities that we are in are. I mean, of course we're going to talk about this stuff. Of course we're going to help people adapt, but that's not. This is a societal challenge that we're facing, not
I
something.
was just telling a colleague of mine who I've known for 40 years how to work his phone.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, for how long have you owned a phone? Like,
Right.
it was just hilarious because I'm his resource now.
Right.
But change
but
happens at the
even
local level.
yeah, but even with what we're doing, and I don't by any means mean to minimize what all of us are doing in terms of this, but it does come down to a question of heart and empathy and compassion and those things that is problematic if the technology is devoid of it. Because at the end of the day, if there is no humanity in the technology, then what is it? And I think that if you look at all of the ills that are going on in this country or even in the world, most of the time it's just a lack of humanity for each other. And so, I think we need to, as best we can, push that envelope and be the examples of what we want the rest of the world to be. If it's just in our communities, we just have to push the envelope a little bit.
I'm for that.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a negative Nelly here, but we'll see.
As usual.
As Beauty Bubble TV says, we need to value. Here, let me pull this up for us.
Yeah.
We need to value virtue, teach virtue, and elevate those that believe virtue is paramount to learning and being in all newness of this world. Hope that comes out right. I love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love it.
It's a virtuous circle.
It is. It is. And it's good that we're talking about this, even if we are
And it comes back to you all the time.
Even if we're in our bubble.
I tell people who feel depressed that if you go out and help somebody else, you won't be so depressed.
Yeah.
Because they'll thank you or they'll appreciate you.
And
or
you know
you'll
what?
see them succeed.
And one of the promises that the AI people have been telling us is that we could potentially get a lot more time back, a lot more free time back.
Yeah, I think that's a lie.
Just think about if we
what are we going to do with that free time?
No, but really, I mean, if we can figure out a way.
We'll have a rundown every day of the week.
Gmail promised that to me, and I've got 23,000 messages in my box.
Okay, but
so
if
I don't know
if
what
it
you're
happens,
talking about.
if it happens, I mean, imagine
Okay.
if community leaders could get ahead of that and teach us and train us to use that time for good, for goodness, for kindness. I mean, just imagine, because, like with everything, and people have said this in the chat, like with everything, these tools could be used for good or bad. It's all a decision that we have to make. But here we are facing a potential change that is so fundamental that, I mean, when's the last time time changed? The nature of time. When's the last time that changed? The nature of time and how we spend time may be changing, and we have an opportunity to craft what that means and what that looks like for our communities. It's so profound, just amazing.
For me, time changed as soon as I had a child.
Well, that's very true.
The
You're
idea of
absolutely
how
right
much
about
time
that.
I have.
You're absolutely right about that. All right, friends.
Or a mortgage, that too.
And yes. So next week, I am hoping that we can dive into when safety scales. Are we becoming safer or more fragile? And I want to look at self-driving cars and robots and AI and all of these different things that are promising us safety. Robots can do work that don't need to humans don't need to go into dangerous situations. Self-driving
robots
cars
on Mars.
may
Yeah,
keep us.
right.
There was an amazing display. It looked amazing to me in China of their what is that robot called? The one with the open face. I keep forgetting the name.
Oh, you're talking about the calisthenics ones, the leaping.
It wasn't
robot?
calisthenics.
Crazy.
They were doing it was wild. They were doing taekwondo.
Oh, okay. All right. Not the one I
Robots. Let me
saw.
see if I can find it. But where was it? It was it Korea? No, I think it was China. Oh,
surprised
here
me.
we go. So this was at the Spring Festival Gala in China. Is that the right one? There we go. Okay. So this was I thought this was crazy. So you've got some boys there doing some martial arts. There are some more boys up at the top, and there are all the robots down below, and they are going to just do their thing.
They're going to do a kata, yes.
And it gets kind of crazier as it goes. So now then they bring weapons out.
As it usually does, yes.
Yeah.
It starts off really easy, and then it starts to get really complicated.
And I mean, to me, this looks insane. Someone pointed out
Yeah.
in some comment I read somewhere that this really isn't all that difficult, that you're just basically telling the robots. It's not like they're doing this autonomously. They were trained in exactly what to do and what movement to do. But to me, the fact that they're standing upright and able to move without falling over, it's just, I don't know.
What caught my eye is the number of people with their hand up and a phone
Yeah.
in the wide shot with the crowd.
I mean, look at that. Look what
they're looking at.
I mean, look at what they're going to do now.
Yeah,
Look at that. What is
outstanding.
that?
So crazy.
Like what?
Yeah.
What? I can't do that.
This is Cirque du
like-
Soleil's worst nightmare.
So
looks like animation.
Are these really going to be? Look at that. What?
Is that entertaining?
Oh my Lord!
Yeah.
All right, enough. I have to stop watching.
Just wait until they start taking over football games.
Well, so that's it, right. So are we? I mean,
It's
they
the
kind
safest thing you can
In
do.
some ways, they already are. But so are all of these things that are promising a safer future? Are they going to make us safer? That's what we're going to talk about next week. If you're interested in being a part of that conversation, you can join our panel. We'd love to have you. Just reach out to me in Discord or find me anywhere. If you're not on Discord, I'm all over the place. But I love having new voices and new friends here. I want to give a shout out to Simmons, to John Wallace, to who else am I missed? Cindy Drozda is here. Tim McCullough, who is watching Beauty Bubble TV. Vic is here. Victor, good to see you. Hershey is here. Guy is here. Really, it's so nice to see all of you guys here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a part of the Office Hours community. If you want to learn more about Office Hours, head on over to officehours.global. That's where you can find all the different shows that we do. You can learn more about The Rundown at therundown.show. I am very, very grateful to this amazing group of friends that I have here. And we will see you all next week on The Rundown.
So much fun to be here.
Bye, everyone. See you later.